Home prices in the Austin region, unlike other parts of the country, have been fairly stable over the last several years. Certainly everyone is aware of the huge increase in pricing that we saw in the coastal markets during the latter part of 04, 05, 06, and then the collapse in home pricing in those markets in 07, 08, and 09, where our pricing has generally been stable. So we think as we move through 2010, probably more stability in terms of home pricing, but at some point, as we see demand grow late this year, early next year, we think we'll begin to see some upward pressure on pricing, not necessarily in every part of the region, but in those most desirable areas. The resale sales and the new home market were very influenced by the first-time homebuyer tax credit that was in place in late 2009 and early 2010. So we saw a big spike in sales volumes late 2009, early 2010. The numbers dropped off significantly towards the end of the year. They generally do fall off because of seasonal changes. They're slower in the fall and winter. But last year probably a little bit lower because the tax credit was not there. Like the resale market, the new home market was certainly influenced by the tax credit. We had a big surge in starts late in 2009, early in 2010. The tax credit expired in the middle of 2010 and sales dropped off significantly. Builders reacted to that by starting fewer homes late last year and early this year. So as we move through this year, we think some of the dynamics are in place with respect to job growth and some tightening market conditions in total new home inventory that will allow builders to start a few more homes in 2011 than we did in 2010. We think the real recovery begins in 2012 with renewed job growth and so little inventory on the ground and better consumer confidence, which ultimately fuels the housing market.
I think one of the biggest concerns right now is just consumer confidence and seeing that the market is a strong market, especially here in Central Texas. We do have a 6-month supply, which is a balanced market. I think the biggest concern would be somebody not willing to get into the market for fear of what might happen later.
When are banks and mortgage companies going to begin lending money? I think that is the key item, and hope the government can keep the rates down. The availability of mortgage money is what's going to be very difficult, particularly on the lower end homes. The median income, if you have good credit ratings, the mortgages are much more readily available, but as you get into the lower end, it's much more difficult to get mortgage approvals right now.
Well, the availability of buyer financing here has been somewhat restricted in the recent past. The big question there is, will they restrict it further, or will there be some loosening to the mortgage market? So that remains to be seen.
The foreclosure pace in Travis, Williams, and Hays County is certainly above what it was several years ago when we were producing a lot of jobs. The numbers went up because of the number of job losses we had in the area. And actually, when you look at the statistics in terms of postings, the numbers have kind of flattened out over the last year or so. And we expect that when we see the resumption of job growth with more stable pricing. So as we move through 2011, I would expect to see, with resumed job growth, that we begin to see our foreclosure numbers actually begin to go down a little bit. I mean, we'll still have a foreclosure issue in those lower priced areas where some folks got into new homes or resales they probably shouldn't have because of the credit mortgages that were available to them in 2004, 5, and 6.
The energy efficiency, water efficiency, and just the issues that the city and the county are working with right now in terms of making sure that the homes are as efficient as they possibly can be. I think you're seeing a little bit of a downturn in terms of the size of the homes being built. No one's looking for the giant homes anymore. They're looking at smaller homes and not more affordable, but just more livable homes.
We're very fortunate to live in this town that not only has all the cultural things it does and how beautiful it is to live here, but from a real estate perspective as well, that we're in a pretty good position from a long-term perspective in terms of home values and ultimately price appreciation. So as we move through 2011, we expect to see slightly higher sales volume than last year. Typically we see more sales in the spring and summer, so that trend will probably follow this year, and then an acceleration late this year and setting the stage really for a recovery and stronger sales in 2012.